I am delighted to be here with you on behalf of District Management Group. We'll introduce myself in a moment. We are here to talk about increasing attendance and learn about proven strategies to get students back to school and make academic gains. Want to make sure you know if you do get kicked off the line, please rejoin. We'll be right back at it. I'm feeling 2020 vibes with this webinar, and it's all going to be okay. So, all right. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are and what we're here to do. We are a district management group. Our mission is to help schools and students thrive. We're a tiny little shop that punches above our weight. It's been around supporting school districts since 2004. We work all over the country and are delighted to be here with people on this line from all over the country as well. Our mission is to achieve systemic improvement in public education by combining management techniques and education best practices. So we think about the interplay between student outcomes, resource allocation, and operational efficiency. When you are struggling to get your students to school, you are having challenges on all of these dimensions. And so that is one of the reasons why working on attendance and supporting schools and districts and getting students back to school is such a passion area for us. We have a number of different focus areas through District Management Group. We have our DM Learning Division, which is our annual summit in New York City. Join us if you can. It's in February. It's a great learning experience, really robust professional learning. We also have an annual journal that we publish. We have a consulting arm that focuses on strategic resource allocation, really thoughtful analysis of initiatives and budgets, as well as schedules. We do deep scheduling work because, as we know, if we get the schedule right, the people can be in the place to do the thing. And so we spend a lot of time and energy thinking about how to help schools and districts get their schedules right. And then our last focus area we call breakthrough results. And that's what Michael and I are here to talk with you about. It is structured and facilitated approaches to deliver tangible solutions to district challenges. We do that through rapid cycle improvement science, performance coaching. And Michael is one of our superstar performance coaches. And so I will try to move through what I have to say quickly because you want to know, how are people getting performance in attendance? And that is what Michael works daily to do with schools and districts. The Breakthrough Results Program is focused on achieving measurable, proven results in a very bite-sized amount of time. Usually it's a 10-week cycle, which is like just enough to make something really meaningful happen and then be able to take a breath and reflect on how you did and go back at it again. And we do that through building the leadership capacity of teachers and staff using the principles, again, of improvement science. You probably have some of this in your district. Maybe you call it, plan, do, check, act cycles or something else like a PDCA cycle. This is a theme that's out there in education, but we're bringing it to the ground floor to teachers and leaders in the building and attendance teams as well. And we, in partnership with schools and districts, have been able to raise ELA achievement, raise math achievement, increase graduation rates, raise student attendance, and more. So this is me. I'm Shauna. I am the managing director of our Breakthrough Results practice area here at District Management Group. I've previously worked in other education roles. Most importantly, I started my career as a bilingual special education teacher and spent a decade as a school leader here in Boston. I earned this gray hair over the course of the pandemic, trying to lead a school through the pandemic. So I know that some of you may have gotten your gray hair that way as well. But the star of our show today is our guest speaker, Dr. Michael Roth, and he will be joining for the conversation, the fireside chat, in just a moment. He has deep leadership experience in Pennsylvania across all administrative functions. He's also adjunct faculty teaching in the education leadership and doctoral program near his home. And he comes to you with a doctorate in education from the University of Pennsylvania with special expertise in social media use, which is more timely than ever. And so we're excited to be in dialogue with you, Michael. So we're going to talk ever so briefly about the attendance crisis. I'm going to share some outcomes of the Breakthrough Results program that we have gotten in in attendance programs so you can see what it looks like to meaningfully break through, as we say, and get results. And then most importantly, we'll get into dialogue with Dr. Roth about what are the challenges that people are tackling on the ground floor and what are some strategies that actually are working. So if you're on this call, it is because you know this. You have this problem. You know that the rates of chronic absenteeism in our country have skyrocketed and have remained perniciously high, right? So pre-pandemic, 2018, 2019, the rates of students who were chronically absent, meaning missing 10% or more of school, about 15%. That peaked right after the pandemic. And one would think that we would have been able to bring it down by now, but we have not. We simply have not been able to get our kids back to school. This is mirrored in what you would see with attendance rates, right? Average daily attendance, another way of thinking about attendance, lower than it's been in a really long time as well. And then related, of course, is what's going on with academics and spending. So these three things working together kind of blow my mind. What you see on this chart is the trend line with the red and the sort of navy blue lines showing fourth grade reading and eighth grade math achievement on NAEP respectively, right? So really precipitous decline post-pandemic, very troubling. And in parallel, at the same time, education spending has ballooned. We have people all over our districts, all over our buildings, with roles like coaches and interventionists and this and that. And the achievement results have never been higher, and the kids are not coming to school. So you think about these three things, and of course, we're left with a very complex and problematic set of outcomes. The kids are not learning. They are in part not learning because they are not coming to school. And we've got tons of people whose job it is to make sure that they're in school and achieving, and yet we're somehow not able to deliver the outcomes that we would want to see for our kids. So what are we going to do about it? Oh, well, let me tell you one more very complex problem. So in addition to the fact that the kids are not coming to school, the achievement is lower than it's been in a very long time, and the spending is higher than ever. One of the challenges we see with attendance is many states actually count on attendance to play a role in the way funding plays out. So this is a chart from our friends at Everyday Labs. They have a really cool data system for measuring attendance. And you'll see multiple states are funded based on average daily attendance. So we look at California, which is having a very significant budget crisis, in part driven by the fact that funding is based not on enrollment, but on attendance, and they cannot get their kids to school. Similar in Texas and elsewhere. And then even in places where it's not necessarily a component of your funding formula, most states do have some sort of absenteeism accountability measure that determines whether you're A, B, C, D, E, or F, or whatever your own state framework for that is. So in many states, districts can lose sometimes more than 5% of their overall budget due to student absences. You look at a 500 student school, that's $275,000. So we're talking about a very significant problem across all dimensions, most notably that we want our kids in school so they can thrive and be well and go on to do great things. But also when they don't come to school, there are all kinds of challenges that we as district leaders face. So why is this happening? What's going on? Well, we mostly know and understand and intuit. But over the course of the work that we have done, District Management Group, and we work all over the country on attendance issues, we sort of think of it as like, there are some actually pretty simple, straightforward, if you will, reasons that kids are not coming to school, and then some very complex, complicated reasons. Among the straightforward reasons, it could be, honestly, that students and families don't understand how attendance is counted, that it impacts the school when they do not come. We see this particularly in places where attendance is partial days missed actually leads up to an absence. And families are like, well, I have a doctor's appointment. It's like, well, could you please schedule that for after school? Because this is actually becoming a problem. It's just honestly a communication gap. This one was super interesting. This one also blew my mind. last year we were working in a large urban district in the Midwest, which has very high stakes around attendance, but the final schedule was such that teachers would tell the kids that they didn't have to come to school on days when they didn't have a final, despite the fact that the district had a very significant goal around attendance. So often it's just internal communication challenges. What is actually the policy, and are we doing a good job enforcing that? That can be a challenge. And this one is tiny, but you would be surprised at what happens when senior skip days add up, right? There are student traditions around missing school, getting their hair done on homecoming day, that over time, particularly if you are struggling with attendance culture in general, these really do add up. Now, these are small and simple. This is not the root of the problem, but I name them because even when we start to unpack all the issues, some of them are simple and winnable. That's actually underneath the spirit of breakthrough results, is that there are winnable things on attendance. Okay, what are some of the harder things to tackle? Well, let's just name the thing, which is that the value of school and the importance of being in school was disrupted during the pandemic. Families now don't feel as compelled as they did before to have students in school every single day. All you need to do is be in an airport the 5 days prior to a holiday break to realize that nobody's worrying that much about kid missing the Thursday on the week before that, So, and that is similarly true if a student is ill. We used to think they should just go to school, and now we're a lot more measured about that. And that makes sense. We understand why we're in this place. Also, students struggling with a sense of belonging. I name this as a bullet. This is so much more than a bullet, you all. Obviously, you know this. Students struggling with a sense of belonging, students struggling with mental health challenges. These could each be their own dissertation and hopefully are. And students not feeling seen, known, and loved in school. This is true both generally, and we have students who struggle with very acute school avoidance behaviors, and that has gone way up post-pandemic. I look left and look right on my own street and see kids that cannot get themselves to school for severe mental health reasons. Often, and this is another one, goodness, if we could fix this one, we would win the ball game. What is being taught is not motivating to students. It's not energizing. It's not connected to their future in a way that they see, and so they don't feel compelled to attend. We haven't done a good job making the case. And then, of course, logistical challenges, transportation, childcare for younger siblings, all of the above getting in the way of students attending. So the mountain is significant, the one that we must summit. And yet, that is precisely why an intervention like the Breakthrough Results Program is so meaningful in this time. Why? Because we believe that successful change programs actually begin with results. This is like the simplest concept, but it's actually pretty profound. It's the idea that it's not a memo or a PD or a big meeting or anything that's going to change the outcomes. It's actually the act of finally winning and getting outcomes at something that feels almost undoable, right? We've gotten ourselves into this corner where it feels like we're never going to be able to get them back to school. And so what we do is break down the work into the tiniest, most winnable chunk, and then unleash the potential of teachers and building leaders so that they can start little by little chipping away at what truly feels like a mountain. So successful change programs begin with results. That is our profound belief, and it is on that premise that the Breakthrough Results Program has been built. So let me show you a couple of the results that we were able to attain because of this. First, we did breakthrough results in Providence, Rhode Island in the 2023-2024 school year. And Providence Public Schools had 19 of the top 35 reductions in chronic absenteeism across Rhode Island. So if you look at this chart, every line is a school. The blue schools are the ones that we did not work with. They were not in Providence. We were not working with them. The orange schools are the ones that we were working with in Providence. you will see, so the height of the bar is a good thing. It is the height of the bar is a good thing. It is the reduction in chronic absenteeism, which is a little counterintuitive, but think height means we reduce chronic absenteeism by that much. And so you will see that the orange lines are clustered all towards very strong reductions in chronic absenteeism. VZ Street, for example, reduced their chronic absenteeism rate by 25.1%. And when you do the math, this actually led to, across the district, over 100,000 days in recaptured days of learning. And that's what it's all about. It's not just to get them there to be there and to warm the seat. It's so that they can be there to learn the work. And so this was a huge intervention we were really proud to be part of. Let's bring it down, though, to a school level and see how winnable it actually is. So this was one of my favorite little projects. We worked with one school in a large Midwestern district, and it was a 7-week cycle. And what we were able to show them, first of all, we were able to reduce chronic absenteeism over this time period, which was the end of school. So PS, enter senior skip days, enter final schedules, enter all the things. So we were able to reduce chronic absenteeism. But the extra interesting part was to be able to show them, hey, you are worried about your most chronic students. Of course you are. That makes sense. They're the ones that pull at our heartstrings. That's why we have social workers, right? So they were thinking about the kids who were 10%, 20%, 30% attendance. Those are the ones we're worried about because something is going on for those kids and we should be worried. But 198 kids, a large proportion of them, were within 3 days of not being chronically absent. And so if we can focus on winning where it's winnable, it will unleash something and build a stronger culture of attendance. And so that is one of the things we really do encourage when we do our data-driven work with our teams of teachers is, hey, let's jump into the data. Let's see what's it going to take to move these 198 kids to the next level. So that's the work that Michael does every day. One last example here, in a breakthrough results program in a small Midwestern district, really at the end of the school, there's just a couple schools. Even they were able to capture a whole bunch of extra days of learning in 5th grade and 6th grade. And the best part, right, is when the kids care themselves, right? You're not trying to get them to do it because you're dangling something in front of them. They want to be there themselves because you have changed the culture of attendance in your building. And so the assistant superintendent telling us that we saw students calculating their own attendance percentages and asking how to stay above 95%. So that is exciting. That's when it's really working. So we love doing this work. We love supporting districts in finally feeling that they can win again at something that's so challenging and yet so important. And so how do we do it? Michael will get into the details, but basically what it is we really focus on, okay, and it sounds semantic, but it's not. Are we trying to figure out to reduce chronic absenteeism or increase average daily attendance? They're slightly different, and they lead us to focus on slightly different groups of kids. And so we'll figure out what's the true need based on where the district needs to be. And then our DMGroup performance coaches will do a few things. First, they will work with teams of school staff to set concrete, specific, time-bound goals based on the desired results. This might sound like, 40, 50 of 75 kids between the bands of 85% attendance and 90% attendance will attend 42 of 44 days within this window. I mean, it's that specific, right? So that the team can really get after it and look at how are the kids doing and how are we doing against that goal. So we call that a SMART goal. You've probably heard of SMART goals before. Then we share and review data on a weekly basis. And here's the thing, there's plenty of data out there for attendance. It's attendance. You track it every day. The question is, how are we gathering it? How are we looking at it? And most importantly, how are we connecting dots between what the data is telling us, what our strategies are to get kids back to school, and whether those strategies are actually working? Like, are we having those conversations? And that's what we aim to do. And that's the root cause problem solving, really. And then what we do is we coach team members to try new solutions and fail fast. Okay, we're going to try putting notes in the lockers for the kids that are coming. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, perhaps not. Let's try something else. Let's make sure we've got these relationships really tight. And every kid, of course, believes that they are known and loved in this environment, right? We've just got to try things and try things rooted in what we know works with kids until it works. And that's what breakthrough results is about. So we are now going to get to the main event. I'm going to stop my share here, and I'm really excited to invite into the conversation Dr. Michael Roth, who certainly grappled with all of the above in your own tenure as a district leader. But now you're getting to do it alongside other district leaders and teachers. And so I'm really excited to learn more about what you're up to. And I have to confess, I did have the chance to observe Michael in a team meeting earlier today, and that was very fun. Before we move to our first question, I do want to name, we seem to have sorted it out, but we did previously have a technical difficulty. So if we, for whatever reason, the call gets dropped, please just hop back on the line. So Michael, thank you for being here. Anything you would like to add or say by way of preamble?
No, that was a great way to explain not only the process, but the work and the excitement that I feel on a daily basis working with our teams around attendance challenges and breakthrough results. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah, I feel excitement. I hope you can tell. This is really important work. We love it so much. So, Michael, can you share a little bit about what is the role of a performance coach? It's not a term that everybody has instructional coaches or whatever, but what's a performance coach?
Yeah, I love that. And as you were talking about this being a huge mountain to climb in terms of attendance, I almost feel like as a performance coach, I'm like a Sherpa.
I
I'm
was gonna
helping
say, I
that
think you
team,
said.
right, to take all of that baggage and figure out how are we going to move the needle and how are we going to achieve the result of getting to the top of that mountain, whether it's achieving a better average daily attendance or reducing the percentage of chronically absent students. So, as a performance coach, I'm going to start with what it's not, right? So I'm not necessarily a subject matter expert, although I've had experience in attendance. It's not that I'm an expert in those particular things. I am not a supervisor or an evaluator, but I am somebody who is a collaborator and a thought partner. So I work alongside of the teams to help them either unpack data, to look at what the data is telling them, find patterns, trends, drill down into specific into specific examples with students, and really keep conversation flowing and tossing ideas around and innovations around. Sometimes I'm the cheerleader with them. Sometimes I am someone who's saying hey, I think you might need to consider, right? Or have you considered? So also being someone who's very curious in terms of asking those particular questions. I think the one key part that I have found most effective in terms of being a performance coach is meeting teams where they are at. Because when I meet a team where they are at, I'm able to then really help them fail fast, help them to establish those SMART goals, and be able to help them get to the point where they become their own Sherpa, right? In terms of navigating that mountain climb. And many times that comes about by working directly with a team lead who can give me some of that perspective and background with a team that's been brought together.
Yeah, tell me, what is a normal team lead, and what are the different roles of team leads, and what's the profile that you've worked with in that role?
So many times it's context driven, right? So in terms of attendance breakthrough results, I've worked with team leads who are assistant principals in schools. I've worked with social workers, attendance specialists that might be working at a district level and supporting a particular school. And in one case, I'm actually working with an entire district, and we are the team leads are the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, right? So it can vary. And there again, that becomes very important in terms of meeting them where they're at and what their needs are as an individual. So, they, I will work with them to not only structure and create the environment that is necessary for breakthrough results to happen within their school or their district, but also to help them unpack what are some of the issues or challenges that they might face as a team or as a district or as a school, and what are some of those ways that we can help them. So that's been it's been really enjoyable for me, because again, I've been able to, I know I'm going to say it again, meet the team leads
Yeah.
where they are as well. And in some cases, team leads have been identified because they there's leadership potential seen in them, right? There's
Yeah.
somebody who
Yeah.
another leader has said, hey, you can help lead this team, right? In some cases, it has been, they've been voluntold that they are going to be
Yeah.
a lead on this
We
team.
know how that is.
Yes, exactly. So knowing what that is also allows me to help them. So like, for example, I have one person right now who's really trying to grow her leadership skills. So we talk about, and I coach her through the performance of what's happening with the BTR results, but then we also talk about how that meshes with leadership, right? And what that means for her leadership in particular. So it's helping them to understand that, getting them skills, teaching them data if that's what they need, how to analyze it, what
Yeah.
tools are available to them, and so forth.
Yeah, to that point, I loved this morning what the team lead saying, hey, got to her team. So Michael, the way this works for greater context is Michael will work with the team lead usually earlier in a week to plan the attendance meeting, right? Many districts have these, and if they don't, they want to, they know it's something they should do. So Michael will work with the team lead, the designated person to chair the attendance effort in the earlier part of the week, and then we'll convene a team of colleagues to dig in later. And it was so cute. This one person was like, hey guys, Michael taught me how to do that like thingy on Excel, which is like a V lookup, right? She just had not yet learned how to use Excel or Google Sheets in a way that she could really manipulate the data and learn how things were going. And so sometimes, we see that often just basic data literacy prevents our schools and districts from making progress, that often, schools and districts are data rich and information poor. And so we're trying to bridge that gap. But Michael, you mentioned some of the challenges that you see in attendance meetings, and we have a number of folks here on the line. What are some of those attendance challenges, and what are the challenges that you see in the meetings? And then what are you doing to surmount those?
So what I've often seen in attendance conversations is that their focus has been on either the students who have been attending very strongly, or the students who have not been attending, right? So the students who are in the red, or the
In the
students who
red,
are
yeah.
severely chronically absent, right? And so many times they want to, because they want to celebrate those who are doing really well, and they
Mhm.
want to help and support those who are really struggling. So what that I found is that as a challenge, that sometimes narrows their focus, and
Mm.
they have all these other great ideas or great strategies that they could try, that they are not thinking they can use with those particular students. And that's where we start to look at, well, I'm going to say sort of sometimes students in the middle, right? Students who are
Yeah.
on a borderline between being chronically absent and not chronically absent. So helping them to unpack that data, look at that data and understand it, and being able to look at trends, right? Because sometimes,
Mm.
like you said, data rich, right? I was working with one team this morning who they have a total of 27 students who are in the severe chronically absent, right? So it's helping them to look at those numbers. But when we started questioning the data and looking down at it, 14 of them were pre-K or K, right?
Mm.
So over half of them were at that level. So again, getting them
Huh.
to think about data and
Yeah,
look
get
at data,
curious.
yeah, and get curious about it, right? There's times too where teams might already have set norms
Mhm.
and set roles, and other times they don't. And again, depending on where the team is and how they function, it might be helping them to set those norms. It may be helping them to, set roles within those meetings, figure out what's the best way to structure an agenda and stay on that agenda,
Yeah.
and make sure that we are really focusing on root cause analysis, and we are focusing on strategies and measurement and accountability to those strategies within
Yeah.
this very short 10-week cycle.
Yeah. I've seen our performance coaches often function as like the accountability partner to just ensure that the team stays focused on the thing because there's so much else going on. So I think it is helpful to like, okay, we're with Michael today. We're talking about attendance. Let us do the thing. Um, can you tell us about some of so one of the things I find so interesting with attendance is that the connection between the data and the student behavior is not always linear. It's not always clear why students are or are not attending. We can hypothesize, but I'd love to hear you talk about some of the problem solving that you do with teams to figure out like what's really going on in the data, why really are kids not attending, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I loved your example of sitting at the airport and seeing all the kids there, right? In terms of that. So one of the challenges that sometimes we think is not within our control, and it truly isn't in terms of being able to stop it from happening, but is families taking vacations, right? So what we uncovered in several schools that I was working with is that we had some families who took vacations at the beginning of the year, right? So there were some they fell directly into that red severe category, right? Like almost week 2 because of those days. So the strategy or the approach became an outreach to those parents, not to say please don't go on vacation, but to communicate how important attendance is, what that means for their child, what it means for, the school and being excited to have their child there. And actually what we saw happen over the course of our cycle is that their attendance, especially around students in the red, they were ones that really increased the most because they took it seriously. They took it seriously and said, you know what, we're not going to just keep a child or a child home if they're, saying they just aren't feeling well but don't have a fever or any of those types of
Mhm.
things, right? So it's being able
Yeah.
to do that. We looked at it too in terms of in one district that I'm working with, like you mentioned, a partial attendance counts against, right,
Yeah.
students. So we were started looking at trends of students, diving deeper into the data, looking at students who were being signed out early, right,
Mhm.
or being signed out early or being brought in late and looking at are there family groups, right? So in some cases it was children, if a child did have a doctor's appointment, the family was signing all of the children out and taking all of them
Yeah,
out, right?
interesting.
Right. So being
That makes
able,
sense when you think about it. I'm a
sure,
mom. I
right,
don't want to go back there, get the other guy. Like,
right,
I
right,
get
exactly.
it.
Exactly. But so then
But
what that became
yeah,
was about outreach and conversation to the parent.
yeah.
Also, and this is where it's real important to think about the makeup of the entire team. Many of my teams have an attendance secretary or an attendance clerk who sits in that
Mhm.
main office, who sees these families and kids every single day. And so, what we also did is we empowered them with scripts. We actually crafted scripts and talking points that those secretaries could, that front office individual could
Yeah,
use in terms of having positive conversations
that makes
with
so
parents,
much sense.
right? Not negative, like, hey,
Yeah,
you're late again, or hey, but just like, hey, do you know? Are you aware of that? Right? Like those types of
yeah.
things. So
I love that.
those
Well,
are
and it
the
makes me think too about when we think about who's the team, making sure that we have people at the team who we might not always expect, but they're the ones that can pull a lever related to attendance. So I'm thinking of a district where this group of leaders identified that the custodian is the one who
Mm,
every child will come to school for the custodian. He knows every family. He's a big man about the community. And they're like, well, we're going to need to ask the custodian to be on the attendance team. And we were like, we love this for you. This is brilliant because, he'd never been invited to an attendance team meeting before. He's busy mopping the floor and wiping down the cafeteria tables. But
right.
to their tremendous credit, they realized where the power is and who really can be an influencer. And so I think one of the things that breakthrough results can do is help us think creatively about like who is the team that's really going to make something happen. So I love that. Attendance secretaries, so powerful, right? Um, all right. So tell us the solutions. Let us know what are people doing that's working. We really want to know what are some of those innovative solutions that your teams have been trying that are working, and also not just like, how do you know they're working? Because we all have tried the back to school barbecue to be like, I know what we'll do. We'll engage the families. We'll have a back to school barbecue, and then every family will be connected to the school and will want to come the whole year. And like, raise your hand if you've tried that. Certainly I have. But it may or may not be the strategy that works. So tell us what they're trying and what's working.
Right. Well, I think that's one of the fine lines that when you're as a performance coach, you want to do, because you don't want to squash that creativity or those cultural pieces that can build for a team, right? So I do have one team right now that is doing a donut drop day. So basically, when if students come that day, they're going to get a donut. Parents, if they drop them off that day, are going to get a donut. Bus drivers are going to get donuts. It's a day of donuts, right? Which is a good feel good thing, right? But what's going to be real important is that we also monitor, did that really make a difference
Yeah.
in terms of overall broad, right,
Yeah.
types of attendance, right? Because to your point, we don't want to be putting our efforts into something that is not working, right?
Mhm.
So in one particular school, what became very important was check in, check out. So
Yeah.
the team lead worked with the other members of the team to create a structure for check in, check out on our students that were a part of this BTR focus. So they got a personal check in, check out every day to just make sure that they were on track. And what they did then is, to your point of like tracking goals, they built a system where, like, if their attendance improved, they could earn 5 minutes in the gym on a
Yeah.
Friday, 10 minutes on it, right? And so what we did see happen, right, is that we tracked and monitored those particular students. And many of them actually went into this particular district, the yellow, which was the at risk but not chronically absent. And some of them even jumped into green, right? So then what it became was, all right, how do we engage those students but kind of graduate them out of the program? So in some instances, those students became mentors for other students that this team then pulled into that check-in,
Oh,
check-out.
wow.
So that was one where we could really on the ground, almost daily be looking at
Yeah.
where the students were at, and was this something we wanted to continue as a practice.
I love that. And, again, when students feel this in their own bones and are leading and owning their attendance, that is when everything really comes together. I was talking recently to an attendance lead who was saying that they are now having students asking their parents to reschedule their doctor's appointments to not be during the school day. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, you guys are winning. You have figured it out. But that's when it really comes together. I love that.
Great.
Um, so I want to open it up for questions to see if anyone else has a question. We, of course, could geek out on attendance strategies all day, every day. We know a team that's doing a Minecraft thing, and my recent favorite was the team that's doing a March Madness, where you get put into certain brackets in your homeroom if you've got certain attendance, and they run that plan all year long. This is a state that really loves basketball. And so anyway, we've got it all, but please, eager to hear. Feel free to pop in the chat. What questions do you have about attendance? What does this prompt for you? Yeah, eager to hear what's on your mind. Feel free to do that. And as people are doing that, Michael, do you have any other thoughts that are coming to mind? Your peers, district leaders are on the line. They are trying to figure out how to surmount this very tricky challenge in the midst of all the challenges they have. What words of wisdom do you have for them?
It really is. I have found too that, especially doing this work, it is truly the ground level, small strategies that often collectively make the biggest difference, right?
Yeah,
So I've sat in the seat, right? Budgets cut. Can we afford to add additional bus routes to, capture more
yeah,
kids to bring them to school? And those are hefty investments, and sometimes they're feel good investments too, right?
yeah.
I've actually, done some not very deep, but I did some analysis in one of the districts I worked in, where there was an expansion in busing, and it actually, over a 2-year cycle didn't make a difference, right? Kids were still
I'm so
chronically
glad you
absent,
mentioned that.
right?
Yeah.
So again, it's about being able to empower people at the school level and even down into the classroom level at times to be able to implement these strategies that then
Yeah.
prove and you track them to see that they are working.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much. I'm so glad actually that you raised transportation because, well, for two reasons. One, it comes up all the time as the reason. And when you dig in with members of an attendance team, often people are like, well, they're not coming because of transportation. And, then, we bring that to the district. We're like, there's, people are saying they're not coming because of transportation. They'll say, actually, we've expanded bus routes, right? I think this maybe is similar. Most kids do have access to transportation. So what we have learned is to really dig in. And this is where like getting precise really matters. Okay, they're not coming because of transportation. What do we mean? Well, turns out they're not coming because they have to drop the younger student at the middle school, and that's making them late for the high school. So it's transportation. But actually, it's that as a family, they're just not managing like getting up in time enough to, which is, listen, life is hard. We are all scattered. It's, but that's not really a transportation problem. That's a family engagement, communication problem, like empathetic problem solving problem, right? So I think that's what I've learned as we've engaged with districts is like, we need to be more rigorous in how we identify the challenges so that we can apply the right solutions. Um, so I do want to also say on this point about problem solving that one of the most powerful tools for problem solving is empathy work, right? It's design thinking. It's called empathy work. What it is, just getting into good dialogue with kids. So, educators have been doing that, which is now called empathy work for our entire careers.
Right.
And so, but really digging in with kids like, hey, why aren't you here? What made you not come? And so one of our partner districts did a real deep dive with a group of kids and found some really, really interesting things, some of which are in the immediate locus of control of the attendance teams, and some of
Mhm.
which are not. In the middle of the year, you're not going to change the bell schedule. So
Right.
if the kid works and is having a hard time getting there for 7:30, you're going to have to grapple with the 7:30 of it all for the rest of the year. You may, though, want to put on your district docket for the next year, like, should we look at that bell schedule? So I do think for the deep problem solving, getting into student-led, student-driven conversations is powerful. Have you had any districts experience that?
Yeah, so I think the district you're talking about, I've been doing work in that, and what I've seen, especially in that check-in, check-out,
Mm,
is that it may not be a formalized empathy type of conversation, but it is very empathetic in
yeah,
terms of finding out what's happening for those particular students, right? It's
yeah,
creating that relationship with them, which then transfers many times over into the relationships with the parents,
yeah, for sure.
especially at the elementary level, right? Like
Yeah,
able to say like, okay, what can we change right now and what can't we
yeah.
change? But like, so for example, I've worked with one school that they have an after school program, but they don't have a before school program.
Oh,
Right. So what we're doing right now is we're actually helping to use some of that data to help build a case because that's not something that can just happen overnight, right? That's not something that this team can do.
right.
We're helping to say like, here's some data that can
For the
be used
future.
for the future, right?
Yeah.
So
Makes sense. Well, we are about to wrap here all. So I just want to say a huge thank you to my colleague, Dr. Michael Roth, for his work. I wanted to share, I learned so much from you, Michael, when I observe your work, when we get into dialogue. So I'm just grateful that you are one of our performance coaches. You too could work with Michael or his colleagues. We have slides that will be emailed to all of you by either today or tomorrow. And hey, listen, we would love to help you on the line get into dialogue with us, get your students back to school. So we are going to follow up with you, see if you might want to run some breakthrough results in the fall or spring. And let's make a plan to get breakthrough results by the end of the school year. The year is young. All has not sailed for the year. There's plenty of time. We've been able to do some really robust work, even starting as late as February or March. So we do have an upcoming webinar next week, Increasing Literacy, so please keep an eye out for that. And for those who are interested, do not miss our summit, which is in February in New York City. Thank you all for being here, and we are delighted to be part of your community. Take care. Bye-bye.